Hello everyone, I hope you're doing very okay. In this video, we're going to have part number 5 of this series of the English Grammar Review, of course the C1 level, okay? So let's see what we are going to talk about. The contents of this specific unit, which is unit number 8 of the course, is gerunds and infinitives, and section 2 will be about conditionals. So let's start with the first one. Section 1, gerunds and infinitives. Now, the main question many people like yourself would ask is, what are gerunds? Okay, gerunds are ing forms. They are ing forms which function as nouns or which work as nouns, in a sentence. For example, sleep too much can become sleeping too much is, as bad as sleeping too little. So that was just an example, but the point here is, of course, sleeping itself, which is a gerund, and it's being used as a noun in our sentence. Now, what are some compound nouns with gerunds? So let's see. We can make, compound nouns with gerunds as well. For example, you can take sleeping and you can connect it with pills, another noun, hence, creating a compound noun, sleeping pills, or on the job training. So training is your other, gerund connected to on the job. And one of the, main uses of gerunds in sentences is that they can be used as subjects. Now, be very careful, guys. It doesn't mean that you cannot use infinitives as subjects. It just means that using gerunds as subjects is a bit more common, okay? For example, staying in bed all day is not a great use of your time. This is correct, and of course, people like it as well. But if you say to stay in bed all day is not a great use of your time, it is correct. Technically, it is correct, but it's a bit unusual. So, like nowadays in modern English, people don't really use, infinitives as subjects. They use gerunds. Okay, we also use gerunds after prepositions and after certain expressions. Okay, example, we have it's worth or it's not worth. This is one expression that after it we mostly use a gerund. It's no good or it's no use, again, plus a gerund, another expression, and there is no point in, so the in part is of course the preposition. It is an expression as well. It's a specific expression, but after the in part we are putting the gerund. Okay, example, there is no point in becoming a doctor. AI will replace all jobs. So this is just one example, but as you can see, we do have a gerund after the preposition in. Okay, so enough with the gerunds. What about infinitives? Now we use the infinitive without to, also called bare infinitive, after modal verbs. We can also use them, the bare infinitive after expressions like had better, would rather, and also we can use them after some verbs like let or even make. Okay. And we can also use, the infinitive without to or the bare infinitive as imperatives in sentences, right? Example, the situation may well get worse. So may well is a modal verb and it's connected to the bare infinitive. Another one, I would rather sleep. So would rather is your, expression. It's a specific expression. And after which we just use a bare infinitive or verb number one. And the last one as an example of imperative, I think we have, be quiet. So be is the, infinitive, and let me have. So in here, this is about let. Okay, when you're using, infinitive with let, just be careful that to is not there. Many people, they just say like let me to have or let me to come in, but all of these ones are wrong. Okay, you just say let me have or let me come in, so the to is not needed. Okay, so what about to? When do we use it? To plus infinitive, guys, can be used after many adjectives, after many comparatives and superlatives, and also after ordinal numbers. Example, I'm happy to tell you. Happy to tell you. So happy is your adjective connected to the to plus infinitive. Another one is like what I'm even happier to talk about today is this, and you can continue it, of course, but the point is, once again, you have a comparative degree connected to a 2 plus verb number 1. And the other one is going to be the ordinal number first. I'm the first to walk on the moon. She's the second person to, I don't know, to teach this class. Like whatever you want to say, of course, it is going to be after ordinal numbers as well. Okay? Okay. 2 plus infinitive can also be used after nouns formed from verbs that take the infinitive. For example, agreement is the noun from the verb agree, which takes the infinitive. Decision is the noun from the verb decide, which takes the infinitive. And plan, of course, is the verb itself as well, but in here it's going to be used as a noun. Two things that do not actually get a 2 plus infinitive, even though their verbs take 2 plus infinitive, are expectation and hope. Expectation, which the verb is of course expect, it is followed by an infinitive, 2 plus infinitive when it's a verb, but when it's a noun, it's supposed to follow with an of plus a gerund. And the same goes for hope, okay? Example, Sally made a decision to resign. So made a decision or made the decision to resign. The point is that you're using a noun, which the verb of it, decide, for example, is also followed by an infinitive. In here, it's doing the same thing. But hope, as mentioned before, hope and expectation are exceptions here, and they do not really get the other structure like 2 plus infinitive. They have to be followed by an of plus a gerund. I had hopes of getting on the team, not I had hopes to get on the team. This is a much better and much more common way of saying that sentence. Okay. 2 plus infinitive can also be used after the word time. And please be careful, guys. This is the word itself. Okay, so the word, let me write the word itself. So this is the word time itself. After it, you can use, of course, a 2 plus infinitive. Example, it's time to go to bed. It's time to go. To go is connected to, of course, the word time. Another one is there's still time to register. To register for the competition, of course, once again, connected to the word time. Okay? And 2 plus infinitive, can also be used after quantifiers like enough, little, and many plus nouns. Example, have you got enough money? So enough money in here, of course, enough is the quantifier. And after it, you have your infinitive. Have you got enough money to start? Or I've seen too many films, of course, too again, connected to its many and connected to its noun and stuff like that. But our main focus will be the verb structure, the 2 plus infinitive. I've seen too many films like that to be very impressed. Okay? So, what about some active gerunds versus passive gerunds? So let's see, everyone. Active gerunds, okay? Active gerunds in the present tense, it looks like this. Like shouting or not knowing, of course, the negative. It's just, your verb plus an ing, okay? But, the passive gerund in the present tense will be like this. You're using a being, the verb being, connected to verb number 3. Okay, so being beaten, not being given, which of course will be the negative. But then you also have the active gerunds, but not in the present tense, but active gerunds with the perfect aspect. So what about that? Then, of course, the tense or the structure is going to be a little different. You're going to use having, okay, having plus verb number 3. Okay, having mentioned or having contacted. Of course, the negative just takes not before everything, so it's kind of self-explanatory. And then the passive gerund in the perfect aspect will be like this. You're using having plus been, and after been you're using verb number 3. Just be careful, guys, that been will be there. So been is like a constant variable, you're not changing it. Okay, so it is going to be there, it's in the equation. Let's say you're not changing it. Okay, the thing that changes is going to be verb number 3 in here. So having been seen, having been told, having been uh, killed, whatever you want to say. Of course, it's going to be like that. A negative, just put not before it. Okay. So what about infinitives? Now, active infinitives in the simple aspect, let's say, will just be verb number 1, and of course, it can also be the full infinitive structure 2 plus verb 1. Okay. So then you have the passive one. So yeah, let's talk about the passive. So the passive infinitive in the simple aspect will be be, okay, will be be plus a verb number 3. So be put. Be put. Of course, you have often there, put off is connected to each other. It's a phrasal verb, but the point here is, of course, only on the verb itself and not a particle. Okay, so and then it has the full infinitive structure, which is going to be to plus a be plus a verb number 3, but to make a negative you just put a not before it. Okay, so what about the active infinitives in the continuous version? So in the continuous version, it was going to have be plus a verb ing. Okay, so be plus verb ing, or if you're talking about the full infinitive one, you're gonna have to be and not just be, to be plus verb ing. And in the passive infinitive with the continuous aspect connected to it, it's going to be being, and then verb number 3. So be being verb number 3, or and the full one is going to be to be being plus verb number 3. It is going to be a bit unusual to say it in this way, especially see the space seems to be being used as a car park. It is kind of like that. It's kind of unusual, but it still is technically correct. The active infinitive in the perfect aspect is going to be, again, have plus verb number 3. And for the full infinitive, it can also be to plus have plus verb number 3. And in the passive infinitive with the perfect aspect is going to be have been plus verb number 3, or to have been plus verb number 3. Okay, to have been plus verb number 3. So just be careful, only if the verb number 3 is in here change, and have been and to have been do not change. Okay, so they're constant. And then you have the last one. You have the active infinitive in the perfect continuous aspect, which will be have been plus verb ing. Okay, have been plus verb ing, and of course the full infinitive will be to have been plus verb ing. You're just getting a 2 next to it. Okay, and for the passive infinitive in the perfect continuous aspect, you're going to be have been. Okay, have been, and then connected to being again. So have been being plus a verb number 3. A very, very unusual way to say the sentence, but is still technically correct. Okay? So there are some tips now. Tip number 1, or let's say the first thing that we have in here, I think we have some more tips as well. Perfect forms of gerunds and infinitives stress that the activity is in the past and complete. So just remember this, right? Okay, if you're using a gerund in the perfect form, or if you're using an infinitive in the perfect form, you're kind of like emphasizing that the activity is in the past. Okay, the activity is not in the present, the activity is in the past, and it's complete. We can often use present forms with exactly the same meaning. Sometimes the meaning will also be the same. Example, her proudest moment to date is having won the Olympic gold or is winning Olympic gold. Now, both of them in here, winning the Olympic gold or having won the Olympic gold, just means that it means that the activity is in the past and the activity is complete, right? But this is something that you do have to note. Having won is just a bit more certain that it's in the past, okay? Or another one, I wasn't happy at having been compared, or I wasn't happy at being compared to someone 20 years older. And the last one, you were supposed to have finished, or you were supposed to finish it yesterday, okay? Another tip, some adjectives, example given, let's say, afraid, sorry, sure, like these adjectives, I mean, are followed by the gerund or the infinitive, but with a difference in meaning. Example, I'm sure to see Tom at work on Monday. In here, sure means that you're focusing on the probability of something happening. Okay? You're what? You're sure that this will happen. So the degree, the probability of it happening is a bit high in a way. But when you say this one, I'm sure seeing Tom will be amazing. Now you're focusing mostly not on the probability, but actually on the emotion or the effect of something happening. Okay, so just to how do you say, to make you guys know this. Just be careful. Some adjectives are followed by both gerund and infinitive, but they do have differences when it comes to meaning. Okay, so section 2 is about conditionals. Let's see what conditionals are. Okay, so we often refer to conditionals as 0, 1, 2, and 3, and also the mixed conditionals, okay? These are useful reference points for verb forms, but there are many variations with different tenses and conjunctions, okay? So these are not the only variations we have of them. We do have some more that we can kind of learn here. Okay. So let's start with the first category, the past and unreal conditionals, okay? So the past and unreal conditionals, of course, the first one will be real itself. We're going to talk about unreal in the next slide, I believe. So in real conditionals, there is no change of use of verb forms, okay? We use the present tenses in the if clauses. For example, if you have the if clause in here, if I want a snack, so want is the present tense. And if we go in here, the if clause is again using, see, goes down, again a different verb, but it's still in the present tense. Okay, so this is because it's a real conditional. Okay. But of course, in zero conditional, which is also one of the real conditionals, the main clause is going to have again as a simple present tense or a present tense, but in the first conditional, the main clause is going to have a future tense. Okay, so she will recover. But the point is that the if clause will always be the present tenses. Okay, in the present tenses. Okay. So what about the unreal ones? In unreal conditionals, we show that a situation is hypothetical. Okay, so that's what we're doing here, right? Or unlikely by changing the verb forms back one tense. So you're going back one tense. For example, what was that? Conditional 2. In the if clause, you're going to have this one, a past tense. If it wasn't raining, and then in the main clause, you have I would go out somewhere. So if it wasn't raining, I would go out somewhere. It is a hypothetical situation because it is raining right now. And if it was or if it were, so both of them can work here. If it was or if it were my choice, we would go to the spa. We can use if plus a was or if plus if were. Either way, it will be okay. Okay, just there are some differences that many people kind of don't really care about, but if you just want to learn it, let's say like this: were is more of a hypothetical situation, while was is more of an actual situation that may have happened in the past. So just think of it like that. Okay, so conditional 3. Megan wouldn't have missed her plane if she hadn't lost her passport. But she did. That's the point, right? She lost her passport. It's hypothetical now. And the car could have gone off the road if he had been driving any faster. But the point is that the car did not go off the road and he had not been driving faster. Okay? So what about mixed conditionals now? In the mixed ones, of course, is also in the family of unreal conditionals, by the way. I would speak French more fluently if I had been allowed to study in France, or if I knew what you wanted, I would have done it ages ago. So, of course, there are two different versions of it. Both are okay. In here, the if clause is using the past perfect, and in here in the if clause, you're using the past simple. While in here in the main clause, you're using a would clause or a clause with would, and in here you're using the past modal or would have plus a verb number 3. So a tip now, we can put had, the verb had, should, and were first instead of if. So this is possible if you don't like to use if. You can use had, should, and were, and just be careful that this will be a bit more formal than the normal if, okay? For example, had I known about your plans earlier, I would have acted differently. So it means if I had known about your plans earlier, I would have acted differently. Or should her condition get worse, we will contact you immediately. You can also say if her condition gets worse, we will contact you immediately. And the last one, were humans to live so long, there would be many health complications. You could say if humans were to live so long, there would be many health complications. Either way, if you just want to learn had and should and were instead of if, learning how to use them instead of if, it is okay. Just be careful. It's going to be a bit formal. Okay, so what about some other conjunctions, right? So, some other conjunctions we have are as long as, so long as, on condition that, or on the condition that, which all of them mean only if. And you also have in the event of plus a noun, which is going to be a bit formal, but it has the same meaning. Example, you can borrow my shirt so long as you don't get it dirty, meaning that you can take it only if you promise not to get it dirty. Goods can be returned on condition that, or on the condition that you have the original receipt. Okay. And the last one, which is a very formal way of talking about an if clause in a way, assemble outside the school hall in the event of a fire, means that if there was a fire, please assemble outside the school hall. And another structure we have is using if, but not just alone. So if plus be plus not for plus noun noun phrase, sorry. And when you're done with that, then you also have another one, but for plus a noun phrase, which is a very formal way. Example, if it were not for Simon, I would never have known about the cucumber diet. Okay, it means that Simon told me. He told me that, hey, there's a cucumber diet, want to try it, or, something like that. And the other one is negotiations, or the negotiations would have failed but for my efforts. The point is that they didn't fail. Okay, the negotiations did not fail because you were there, because you put in the effort. Okay. And another one is using provided or providing that, and it just means if. Okay, the material will be ready providing you give plenty of notice. Means that if you give a lot of notice to us, if you give plenty of notice, the material will be ready for you. And provided that you repay. Okay, provided that you repay it within 3 months, the bank will issue the loan. Means that if you repay it, or if you're willing to repay it within 3 months, the bank will issue the loan or approve the loan in a way. Okay. Okay. Some other conjunctions too, using suppose or imagine that. Okay. example, suppose we could live to 100, what would we look like, right? And imagine there was no school today. Wouldn't that be great? So these ones are more of an unreal conditional style. Assuming and supporting equals this might be the case or means that this might be the case. Example, let's meet on the Sunday, assuming that everyone that is everyone's day off. Okay, so you're not sure, but you think that this might be the case. You think that everyone's day off is Sunday, right? And supposing, same thing, supposing you could find the treasure, what would you do with it? And in here we have just in case, or just, without just, you can also say in case, plus a possible situation or a result. It just means you're kind of using it as a precaution, right? And you have another one in case of plus of a noun. It's kind of like the same as in the event of a noun, but a little different, just a little different, okay? It's more related to precautions, this one, I mean, okay. Example, write down the phone number just in case you forget it. So it's kind of like, if you do forget it, you can use the number then. So write down the phone number now as a precaution, maybe because you will forget it. Okay, so or another one, in case of plus a noun, in case of emergency or in case of emergencies, ring this number or call this number. Okay, or if you say it in this way, in the event of an emergency, you can call this number. Okay, and the last one is otherwise plus a possible result, and it means if not that, then this. So kind of like giving a different choice, right? I need to get a bed. I need to get to bed. Otherwise, I won't be able to get up on time. And I didn't see her, otherwise I would have told her. So it's kind of like if not this, if this one does not happen, then this will happen, right? It's kind of like that. Okay, so I think we are done with this one. Let's now see the next grammar. Okay, so the next grammar are from, let's say, the next grammar topics are from unit number 9. Okay, so in here we have section 1, reflexive and reciprocal pronouns, and section 2 about ellipsis and substitution. Okay, so section 1, reflexive and reciprocal pronouns. Let's see. Reflexive pronouns, everyone, the uses are very simple. When the object is the same as the subject, we use reflexive pronouns. Examples, they killed themselves. So the object is going to be the same as the subject or the doer of the action. So the receiver of the action is again, in a way, the subject. So, it's going to work both ways. Okay, so we're using reflexive pronouns for that. Okay, another use for reflexive pronouns, I believe, yeah, we can use them after verbs and after prepositions. The director of the bank awarded himself a big bonus. So as you can see in here, we're using it directly after a verb, right? Awarded himself. And she said to herself that she'd be passing the test. So if we check, yeah, to is the preposition, and after it you have the reflexive pronoun. We can also use them after nouns and pronouns to emphasize importance and for contrast with other people and other things in general. Thor himself came to my party. So if you put it directly after a noun like Thor, it's just going to emphasize the fact that, hey, it's going to emphasize the importance that, hey, Thor came. And not just any Thor, any person named Thor. No, the Thor, the god of thunder himself, he came to my party, right? And reflexive pronouns, another use, we can use them after verb phrase after the verb phrase to emphasize independence and achievement. For example, he built the house himself. So built the house is your verb phrase, and you have the himself at the end just to emphasize the fact that he did it alone, and you just emphasizing or stressing his achievement. Okay. And after the verb phrase, to show similarity to another person or another thing, reflexive pronouns can be used. So it's kind of, it means like as well. Okay, Qudus prepared a sandwich for his brother and he craved one himself. Once again, we're putting it at the end here. And it shows similarity to the fact that his brother was hungry, like he also, Qudus himself now also needed a sandwich. Okay. We use by also plus a reflexive pronoun to mean without anyone else. So in a way, still you're emphasizing independence. For example, sorry, he passed the exam by himself, right? By himself, or he fixed the car by himself. Okay. Another use is using beside, the word beside plus a reflexive pronoun to mean worried or to mean upset or angry. Example, my brother is beside himself because he flung the test. So he is kind of upset with himself, okay? Okay. Reflexive pronouns now again uses some verbs have a different meaning when the object is a reflexive pronoun. Example, when you use behave with the reflexive pronoun, it means that it just means behaving well. Okay, he didn't behave himself means that he didn't behave well. Just be yourself. So be yourself. It just means to act naturally. You don't want to find yourself. To find yourself or to find oneself in a place means to get into that situation. I helped myself. So help oneself, help yourself, myself, herself. It just means to take something without invitation, and didn't feel myself or not feel oneself means to feel different from usual. Okay, so um, it can also be used with, I think, verbs which are usually done by an individual, like by one person. Example can be shave, wash, and etc. They don't really need a reflexive, sorry, they cannot be used as mentioned here. They don't need to be used with a reflexive pronoun, but if you are going to, make a point, you're just going to, emphasize the fact that, its ability, you're kind of showing off the fact that the person can do it, you're making a point of ability, then you can use it. Example, my toddler dresses himself. Once again, you don't need to say it. You can just say my toddler dresses, or gets dressed or something like that. But when you say himself, you're just, making a point of ability and saying that, he does it alone and he doesn't need anyone else. Okay. In English, we do not generally use the verbs concentrate, feel, hurry, lie or lie down, relax, sit or sit down with reflexive pronouns. For example, it's not really good to say she didn't feel herself comfortable. Just say she didn't feel comfortable. You don't need a reflexive pronoun. Okay, so what about reciprocal pronouns, right? We use each other, so each other is one of them, and one another is the other reciprocal pronoun, right? With plural subjects. This is the first thing that you should know. We use them with plural subjects. For example, we always talk to each other. So we is the subject, and each other is your reciprocal pronoun. And just to note, one another is a bit more formal than each other. Sonia and Taylor spoke to one another on the phone. So when you say spoke to one another, it means the same thing, but it's just a bit more formal. So now if you compare reflexive and reciprocal pronouns to each other, you can see that the meanings are also different. Mr. and Mrs. Smith bought themselves a car. It means that they bought one car, but for them both. But when you say Mr. and Mrs. Smith bought each other a present, it means that they bought two presents, one for each of them. And we can use the possessives as well. For example, you can use each other's and one another's if you like. So section 2, what about ellipsis and substitution? We can avoid repeating our own or other people's ideas using ellipsis, meaning leaving out words and phrases. So that's the meaning of ellipsis. And we can also use the technique of substitution, which is just replacing words and phrases. Okay, so leaving out subjects, main verbs, and auxiliaries. Let's see. We can leave out the following things. We can leave out subjects, main verbs, and auxiliaries after what? After and, or, then, and but. When the subject is the same. So not every time, but when the subject is the same, you can do it. Example, Sasha went to the hotel and she had a good time, but you don't really need to say she. It's the same subject. And you also have an and in here, so you just say Sasha went to the hotel and had a good time. John created a computer, but he sold it immediately. Once again, the subject is the same, and you have a but, so it's gonna work. You just say John created a computer, but sold it immediately. Okay, we usually can't leave out subjects and auxiliaries in clauses joined with the following things like although, because, before, if, and when. Okay, so these ones are not possible. Example, you can't go home because you don't have money. You cannot really say you can't go home because not have money. That doesn't work. Okay, so it doesn't work. Like we don't have any leaving out here. Any leaving out. Okay. What about leaving out verb phrases? So we can leave out repeated verb phrases and use an auxiliary or modal verb instead. And the auxiliary or the modal verb may change in the second verb. For example, Kelly wanted to build a new restaurant, but she never did. So in here, of course, we're also removing the subject once again. We have but and the subject are the same. So, it's really, really good. It can work. Kelly wanted to build a new restaurant, but never did. Now, this did is the auxiliary verb of what? Of this tense, wanted, and it's talking about the fact that she never did this, right? Of course, the full version would be like Kelly wanted to build, Kelly wanted to build a new restaurant, but she never built a new restaurant, or but she didn't build a new restaurant. But we don't have to say like that. That's the point of ellipsis. It's good. We can leave out some things to sound more natural. Okay. We shorten the infinitive to to, so we're making the infinitive very short. We're removing the verb number one, or we're removing the verb part, and we just keep the to, but don't leave it out completely. So we're not completely removing the infinitive. For example, Murtaza needed to buy a computer, but his father didn't want to. So I'm not saying didn't want to buy a new computer or didn't want to buy a computer, but I'm just gonna say didn't want to. So the to part is enough. Another example of ellipsis, let's say, we can leave out adjectives and repeat be sometimes. For example, she is beautiful, are you? So I'm not going to say the adjective again. I just need to say are you. I'm just repeating my be verb, and people know what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay, other examples of ellipsis. We can leave out noun phrases after determiners and after superlatives. Example, that is my favorite place to have dinner, and this is my brother's. Just, it can be done in here, but of course, the full version would be like, and this is my brother's favorite place to have dinner. We're not saying it because it is kind of already repeated. People know what you're talking about, okay? People know what you're talking about. Okay. Okay, we can also leave out repeated verbs and nouns in comparative structures. Example, Puya built the first computer quicker than the second. Now, as you can see, I'm not mentioning he built, but the main point in here being also I'm not mentioning computer. So this happens because it is in a comparative structure, right? We have quicker than. Okay, so what about so and neither? We use so and neither plus an auxiliary or plus a be verb plus a subject at the end to avoid repeating exactly the same idea for a new subject. For example, Asi is a good person, so is secondary, or Qudus is a bad human, and so am I. There are many, many more sentences you can make, of course. All of them just mean that you are technically talking about the same idea, but you're not actually repeating that same idea and you're not using a lot of words doing that. Okay, so what about nor? Nor can also mean and not. So the meaning of nor is and not. Okay, so it's kind of like the negative version of and, some people call it. For example, Rizal doesn't want to visit Paris nor London. The full version would be like, nor does he want to visit London. And an easier way to say is like, Rizal doesn't want to visit Paris and he doesn't want to visit London. But this version is just a bit more elegant, you know? Use it if you want. Okay, so and not. We can also, or we can use so and not instead of clauses after verbs like believe, guess, imagine, be, afraid, appear, assume, you know. What is that? Seem, hope, presume, suspect, and even say. For example, we don't know if the diamond is real, but we believe so. Okay, or Americans are not native to the US, but they think so. They believe that they are. I suspect not. I suspect not. So this is the not version, right? I suspect not. But I'm not sure, so ask someone else. Okay, we use a negative verb plus so with verbs like believe, expect, and imagine and think. Example, I thought John would come back, but others didn't expect so. It just means that, you know, I thought John would come back, but others didn't expect that John would come back. You know, but you don't really say that. Your so is just mentioning everything, you know, indirectly. Okay, we can use pronouns like one and ones to substitute noun phrases. Example, American cars are good. Which ones do you want to buy? So which ones? Which ones of the American cars, right? Do you want to buy? We can use that instead of a phrase or a clause as well. For example, don't call me on my phone. I hate that. So this that is in a way just you know, helping us substitute this kind of phrase, like I hate being called on my phone, or I hate that people call on my phone. You just say that, and that will in a way work instead of that. I hate that. You know, don't give me carrots. I hate that. Okay, we can use possessive pronouns like yours, mine, and etc. to substitute noun phrases again. You have a beautiful phone. Mine is not very good, as we can say in here. Like, you know, mine is just, you know, replacing a very long phrase. Like, my phone is not that good. So you don't really say my phone, you just say mine. It's gonna do the same thing. Okay, so of course if you add some more, it's gonna become an actually a bit longer, so just be careful. Using these kind of possessive pronouns sometimes can actually help. Okay, so we are also done with this one. Let's now move to the next grammar topic. Okay, so as you can see, the next grammar topics are from unit number 10. So let's see. Okay, the contents are regret and criticism structures and passive reporting verbs. Okay, section 1, regret and criticism, you know, structures. So in the conditionals, the first thing that we are going to talk about will be we can use unreal conditionals for criticism and regret. And your criticism would actually be in a way can also be about yourself. Okay. Using hypothetical forms to provide critical suggestions can also soften them. So in a way, it is also good for giving suggestions. Like you'd get a better response if you toned down your language, or I wouldn't have come if you told me you weren't interested. If you had been watching properly, you would be able to do it. If I'd realized my boss was going to be there, I would never have said that. And if you told a few jokes, the audience might listen. So all of them are really good ways to do these kind of things, right? Another structure we have is modals. So you're using modal plus and have plus verb number three, also called the past modal in some cases. And we use them for criticism, self-criticism, or even regret. Example, I could have timed my talk better, and you might have told me, he was going to be in the audience. It's kind of like it was desirable to happen, but unfortunately it didn't. It didn't really happen, okay? Another one is using need in its modal verb. So the negative in here, needn't. Terry never said thank you, so I guess I needn't have bothered. It means that it was, an unnecessary effort. Should is another one, like you should have asked me first. It means that it was the right thing to do, but you didn't do it. Or ought to, which is also the same as should, but a bit more formal. He shouldn't have taken the car. It was wrong. It was wrong. It was the wrong thing to do as well, but you did it, so it happened. And ought not to, which is also the same. It's going to be just a more formal version of shouldn't. Okay, so a tip now, you can use must for criticism, and but you cannot really use must have for criticism. Okay, for criticism of the past actions, you can use should have, which is much better. So if we check the example now, you must work harder for your next exam, right? So must in here is okay, it can work, but when you want to say it in the past, you cannot really say you must have. You cannot say like you must have worked harder for the midterm. You can say you should have worked harder for the midterm if you're talking about criticism, okay? Okay, so what about would like, would love, and would prefer? These phrases, guys, are used with a perfect infinitive like have plus past participle or have and verb number three to talk about regrets or wishes in the past, okay? Example, I would love to have spent more time with you. It means that the speaker did not spend enough time with someone and feels sorry about it. Okay, so these ones are all about wish. Okay, let's see what we can do. So we're using wish plus a past simple for, expressing a desire to change something in the present or in the future. Example, I wish I looked like Jennifer Lawrence. So when you have wish in here connected to the past simple, it's talking about, a desire to change something in the present or something in the future, right? And it continues. Just be careful, guys. It is in the past. It is, how do you say, using wish plus the past, but it's actually talking about the future or the present. Okay, so what about wish plus the past perfect? You're using this one, guys, for expressing regrets about something in the past. Example, I wish I had met you 10 years ago. So this is a regret and this is about the past, okay? I wish I had. Okay, so another one is using wish plus person plus a person next to it, of course, and then you're gonna have would at the end or a clause with would. And we use it for criticism or wanting someone else to change their behavior. Example, I wish you would switch off that phone, or I wish you would turn off that mobile phone or smartphone. Okay, if only, everyone. So a stronger form of wish. If only is a stronger form of wish, and it's used to express a strong desire or a strong regret. Example, if only Trevor were more understanding. It means like I wish Trevor were more understanding, but unfortunately he's not understanding, right? Okay. Another phrase we have, or another, expression we have is it's time. And we can use it's time plus a past tense, or we can use it's about time, or it's high time plus a past tense for criticism. Like example, it's time you got a proper job. It's about time they came to repair the washing machine, and it's high time she came to her senses and realized nobody is perfect. So section 2, what about passive reporting verbs, right? Okay, so passive reporting verbs, guys, the uses are when we're generalizing about what most people say and what most people think, we are using this, like passive reporting verbs. For example, the color is known to the color white is known to represent purity in many cultures. Now, this is like what we are generalizing about. We're generalizing that many people in the world believe this, or when many people in the world say this. So let's now see the next one. Another use we have is that when we want to report information from other sources, especially in academic writing and in the news. For example, in academic writing, passive reporting verbs help us appear more objective, help us be objective, and not subjective, meaning that it's going to be more, how do you say, data driven and fact driven and not emotion driven, right? Our sentences, I mean. For example, it has been shown, so by Smith in 2012, that superstition influences behavior. And in the news, in passive reporting verbs can be used to keep the source secret, or maybe the source is unimportant, so you just don't mention it. Example, it is being reported that the suspect escaped in a car. Being reported is your passive reporting verb. And continuing. So what about the formation? How do you form them, right? Passive reporting verbs are formed by using the passive voice of the main verb and followed by a noun or a clause. Some common passive reporting verbs are known, shown, reported, believed, said, claimed, thought, suggested, and more. Okay, so there's a very, very, common structure we have using it plus passive and a that clause. This structure, guys, introduces a general and or reported statement using it, followed by a passive reporting verb and a that clause. It can be used with verbs like know, believe, say, report, etc. To express what people or most people think or say, or what the sources indicate. And it helps to avoid mentioning the subject or agent of the statement, making it more impersonal and objective, which is a must in academic writing. Some examples are: it is widely known that the middle of the month was unlucky for the Romans, or in ancient times it was believed that the sun went round the earth, right? Okay, continuing. It plus a passive plus a WH clause. So unknown facts, when you're talking about unknown facts, so they were expressed with passive reporting verbs plus WH clauses. The structure is going to be it plus passive plus a WH clause, or a WH clause plus a passive. Examples: it is not known what was said in the meeting, or what was said in the meeting is not known. Or a different version: it is unclear who will be the next president of Afghanistan, or who will be the next president of Afghanistan is unclear. So either way, they're all the same. They're giving you the same meaning as well. Okay. So these ones, guys, follow both structures, these verbs, I mean, okay? Acknowledge, agree, allege, assume, believe, claim, expect, know, report, reveal, suspect, rumor, say, show, think, and understand. We do have some examples. Let's go with the first one once. It is alleged, it is alleged that 5 men in masks carried out the attack, right? So this is just, um, one example. Then you have another one. The ship isn't expected to be arriving anytime soon, or she's reported to have made over $10 million, and more. Okay. So what about this one now? These ones only follow this structure, okay? It plus passive plus that clause. Announce, argue, imply, note, explain, and suggest. Okay, the first one, let's go with the first one once. It was announced that changes would be made, not changes or not saying like it were announced to be made, like changes were announced to be made. This technique doesn't really work. It's better to just say it was announced that changes would be made. So announce is that verb, argue, imply, note, explain, and suggest. All of these ones follow this little structure. And we do have another one as well. And that one is, this structure, subject plus a passive plus to plus infinitive. And in here, we mostly just use consider and repute, okay? So for example, Brian was considered to be one of their best players, not it is considered that Brian is or was one of their best players. This is much better to see in this way, okay? Or they are reputed to have made millions from the sale of their company. Okay, and another structure as well, subject plus passive plus as plus adjective or a noun phrase. And we can use regarded and seen. Okay, Serena Williams is regarded as one of the greatest ever, right? One of the greatest, ever tennis players. It's not good to say, it is regarded that Serena is like that. Or sending cards on special occasions may be seen as old fashioned by some. Now, regarded and seen plus to be is also a possible structure, like you can use it, but it's a bit far less common. Many people will not actually say that. Okay, so I hope everyone, you guys learned something. We are done with the grammar review of, the C1 course. If you do have any questions, just leave them down below. And till next time, bye bye, and, good luck.